Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome you to the Star Career Development Center's Career Fair Prep Workshop. My name is Michael Kalish. I'm the Senior Associate Director for Recruiting and Internships at the Star Center. I've actually been at Baruch for about 12 and a half years. Really excited about tomorrow's virtual career fair. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about how students can prepare themselves, some of the steps they can take. We're going to share some helpful links. We're going to do a demo on Handshake. We're going to try to make this as helpful as possible to all of you to hopefully ease any anxieties that you may have about tomorrow's event. At the end of the day, recruiters are people just like you and me. They just want to get to know you, your background, what you're interested in studying, opportunities that you might be interested in applying to, and sharing their application information for their opportunities, as well as the culture of their firms and things like that. I do welcome questions throughout the workshop. Please feel free to enter your questions into the chat. I have some colleagues on that will help to field those questions. For any questions that my colleagues feel would be better answered aloud, I certainly will be able to do that as we go. We're very laid back here, and we want to make sure that you're getting all the answers to your questions, as many as possible. Okay, so what to expect at the career fair. So obviously, a career fair is going to be the opportunity for you to network with potential employers. Some of the companies that are attending tomorrow will be conducting actual interviews and taking advantage of those one-on-one sessions with you for interviews, but most of them usually look to use their sessions to just get to know you, to have the opportunity to have a brief conversation with you, to answer your questions about their firm, their application deadlines, positions that they're hiring for. Usually it's not as formal of a process, but you still want to conduct yourself in a more formal way because you want to put your best foot forward and you want to create that really positive first impression. So that's really important. It's going to be a chance for you to learn about different industries, different businesses, job functions for companies that you might have an interest in. So you want to make sure that you're asking good questions. We're going to go over that in just a little bit. You'll also be able to have brief conversations with members from different companies, develop an understanding of their application process, when their deadlines are happening, what the application process looks like on their end. And at the end of the day, the responsibility to prepare is really on the student. So you want to make sure that you're researching different companies, you have a sense as to which firms you want to actually meet with. I'll mention this at this point very early on in this presentation that it is a virtual fair, but different than an in-person fair where you would just register and show up. A virtual fair, you not only have to register, but you actually have to sign up for sessions. So if you've only registered for the fair, but you haven't signed up for individual sessions or group sessions for tomorrow's event, you won't be able to meet with anyone. So it's really important that you go in and you sign up for those sessions. In a little bit, I'm going to do a handshake demo and show you what that process actually looks like. Okay, so we have a little video here. I'm hoping it plays. If you don't hear the sound, let me know, but I believe I updated that and I clicked on the sound option. So you should also all be able to hear it. Okay, so I hope that mini video was helpful. I'm going to go over some more of these details throughout the workshop. But just know, as I just mentioned, that you, in addition to registering for the fair, you also have to sign up for sessions. So you'll have the option to sign up for either one-on-one sessions with the companies, which are all 10 minutes in length, or group sessions, which are 30 minutes in length. And up to 100 students are permitted to attend the group sessions. Some companies do group sessions, others do one-on-one, some do both. Some of the companies use the group sessions as just a loose way to answer questions and allow students to ask questions as they come in. Others will use those 30 minutes for their group sessions as formal presentations, and then they take questions afterwards. Sometimes they have a panel of company reps that answers questions in a more formalized fashion. So it really just depends on how the company wants to engage with our students to take advantage of those group sessions. But the majority of the companies do have one-on-one sessions scheduled, and will allow you to actually sign up for those sessions. And again, the one-on-one sessions are 10 minutes in length. Okay, moving right along to resumes. Okay, so hopefully you all have your resumes ready to go at this point. You've all had them reviewed by a member of our team at the Star Career Development Center. Your resume is really going to be your ticket to getting some attention at the fair, to being to making yourself competitive when it comes to applying for internships and full-time jobs through any fair that you attend. So you want to make sure that if you're going to have an objective, that it's clear and concise. That would typically be the first section. It's not usually required, but if you want to have an objective, make sure it's not generic. Make sure it's something that speaks to what you're interested in, that it gives the recruiter a little bit of a sense as to where your focus lies. So if your objective is just to obtain an internship in an area that utilizes my skills, that's a very generic objective. You might want to be a little more specific to give the employer a bit more of a sense as to really what you're interested in. Maybe something like to obtain an internship within accounting in advisory, something like that. So it really gives them a sense as to what you want to do. And that's just an example. GPA, professional licenses, certificates, all of these should be listed on your resume. If you're a new student or a transfer student and you don't yet have a GPA at Baruch, that's okay. You can put pending or in progress. You could also put your cumulative GPA from your previous institution if you just transferred in, and then put Baruch GPA in progress or pending. And that's totally okay. You want to, of course, put current and previous relevant work experience. This could be internship experience, work experience, part-time jobs, full-time jobs. You also want to focus on demonstrated leadership and campus involvement. We actually conduct an internship seminar usually once a month, and a lot of students will ask, I'm looking to get my first internship. What kind of experience should I be portraying on my resume when I lack formal experience and they're trying to get their foot in the door? It's a really common question. If you find that you're asking that same question yourself, you're definitely not alone. The kinds of things you want to focus on are class projects, relevant coursework, any kind of student leadership, student club involvement, interest skills. Class projects are a really big one. And anything that you think would stand out for a potential employer, they want to see that you have a well-rounded background and resume overall. They're not expecting you to have 10 years of work experience when you're applying for your first internship, but they do want to see that you have some kind of relevant skill sets, and that doesn't necessarily have to come from work experience. It could also come from upskilling. So you could use different platforms like the Forage, Skillfully, CareerSpring, LinkedIn Learning. There's lots of different tools where you can actually get these kinds of skill sets to portray on your resume. And you'll find all of those platforms in the resources section, the resource library of your Handshake accounts. So feel free to take advantage of those, especially if you feel like you're lacking experience or relevant skill sets. Feel free to take advantage of some of those platforms. And then lastly, of course, you want to put under the education section, your undergrad, your final graduation date. If you're still not sure, your best estimation is totally fine. You could put expected and then the month and the year that you plan to graduate. Okay. We also have a resume writing guide on our website under the Students tab. So feel free to visit our website to learn more about that and to see sample resumes so that you can update it properly. I also want to mention that I'm going to just briefly end this for a moment. I'm going to show you, I'm logged in right now as a Baruch student on Handshake. And when you, if you click on the little circle in the top right corner with your initials or your picture, if you've uploaded a photo of yourself, you would click this and you would click My Documents. I'm in a test account, so currently there are no documents uploaded. But if you're uploading your resume and you click upload a document, you'll see it gives you the option to check on the public option, which means that employers will be able to see your resume when they're searching through the candidates that are signing up for their sessions. So you definitely want to make that public so that they can download the resumes of the interested students that are joining their group sessions and or one-on-one sessions. You want to make sure that you click on this option when you're uploading documents. Okay, so that's really important. While I'm on here, I'll also show you in a similar section to make your, so this is a profile, this is a sample profile of a student. And so if you want your profile to also be made public to an employer who's searching through Handshake, you would click again on that circle in the top right and click on the settings option. And then you would scroll down and you'll see under the privacy option, this is where you can make your profile public for employers, students, and alumni on the Handshake portal. If you only want it to be viewable just to employers, you would just click the employers option. And if you want it to just be private, where you can just apply for jobs, but you won't get contacted by employers, you would then click the private option.
Mike, is
However,
that where you go for pop-ups as well?
for pop-ups,
Yeah, so that this way they don't, that they're able to, I know that there have been issues in the past. I think
I
in their
don't
privacy, they have
know.
to disable or enable it.
I think that's a different section where they would have to go
Okay,
for that. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
never mind.
No, that's okay. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah, since you were there. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so if a student, if you want your profile to be made private, that's okay. It will still be able to be viewable when you check in with an employer during a career fair. They will be able to see basic information and be able to message you if you have your profile set to private. So we just want everyone to understand the difference between these. I believe the default is to have it on the community setting. And then you could check off, I want my profile to be public and shareable outside of Handshake. So I just wanted to clarify that just so there's no confusion. Okay, moving right along, back to the presentation. All right. Before I move on, and just know we can spend 2 hours alone just talking about resume writing. So this workshop is more solely focused on career fair prep. So are there any other questions about resumes? Any questions at all about what you should be preparing in your resume other than what I've already mentioned here? We certainly welcome questions. And feel free to either type them in the chat at this point. Yep, I see some coming in. Okay. Thank you, Ingrid, for that comment. Much appreciated. Ingrid, if you're possibly able to share our resume writing guide link in the chat, that would be super helpful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so moving right along. LinkedIn, okay. So how many of you, by a show of hands, have a LinkedIn account? Wonderful, okay. And how many of you who have LinkedIn accounts are really, really confident about your LinkedIn profile, like for it to actually be viewed by an employer right now? Okay, I see a handful of hands. So that's okay. You want to make sure that you're creating a really robust LinkedIn profile with a professional image, a nice summary of yourself, your experiences, that you're joining relevant groups and providing interests about yourself, that you're also getting recommendations from people that have supervised you, because that would actually appear on your LinkedIn profile directly. And it's a really nice feature of the platform. You also should have your LinkedIn profile reviewed by a member, by a coach or an advisor at the Star Career Development Center, just to have another set of eyes. So it's really, really helpful. You could also include your LinkedIn URL at the top of your resume next to your email address. So that will allow employers to check out your LinkedIn profile to see how you're representing yourself in a more digital fashion. It's a very common practice for employers to look at student LinkedIn profiles, which is why I mention all these things. So again, make sure you're having your LinkedIn profile reviewed by a member of the Star Career Development Center to talk about what the tone looks like, how your objective is, the About Me section. It's really, really important to be able to do that, and also to show how active you are on the platform, sharing articles, commenting on friends' profiles. It'll show your level of activity on the site. That's really important for an employer to be able to see those kinds of things. And then, of course, messaging companies of interest, reaching out to Baruch alums. Many students don't even know that you're able to actually visit the Baruch College LinkedIn page, click on the alumni tab, and then actually search and filter for Baruch alums in certain industries, and you can actually peruse their profiles. And if somebody's profile and experience resonates with you, if it's something you could see yourself doing, you might want to reach out to those alums and request an informational interview. So you can chat a little bit more with them about what their career trajectory has looked like, any challenges they've experienced, asking them basic questions about what a day in the life of their career looks like. It's always helpful to learn from Baruch alums in certain industries. So you definitely want to take advantage of LinkedIn and the many services that it provides. Okay, let's see, there's some things in the chat here. Okay, thank you, Ingrid. Brian, thank you for sharing. We plan on sharing the recording of this workshop out to every student that checked in today, as well as to all of the students that registered for the career fair in general. So we plan to send that out either today or early tomorrow morning. Thank you for asking that. Okay. So before the career fair, you want to make sure that you're preparing a personal pitch, being unique, preparing, a 30 to 60-second pitch, which really highlights your background, your strengths, experiences, your career objectives, what you're interested in, why you're interested in a career at a particular firm. And let me just back that up. You want to make sure you're researching the companies that are attending tomorrow and perusing their descriptions and their sessions and having a sense as to which companies you want to meet with so you can sign up for their sessions, and then doing research on those firms and being prepared to talk about what it is about their company that interests you. Why is it that you want to work there? Is it the reputation? Is it their culture? Is it that you've known someone that's worked there before and they've really raved about their experience? Is it about the way they've handled a particular, activity or handled something in the world today? What kind of challenges have they experienced and how have they dealt with those kinds of things? You want to look at all of those kinds of things, which will help you determine the tone that you have when you're actually speaking with these reps. So having a personal pitch is so important. A lot of students get very nervous and anxious when it comes to these things because they don't really know what to talk about. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of you being able to introduce yourself, indicating what you're studying, talking about some of your short-term and long-term goals, and what it is about this particular company that resonates with you. That's really what your pitch should be about. Maybe even talking about, how long ago you decided to major in what you're majoring in, or kind of things that you're passionate about and why that is, and even talking about some of your interests and how they kind of factor into why you selected your major at Baruch College and some of your relevant skill sets. Really, really important to be able to talk about those things in a very organic, natural way that doesn't sound rehearsed, that sounds more holistic, that sounds a little bit more natural, like you're having a basic coffee chat, right? At the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of the workshop, recruiters are people just like you and me, and they just want to get to know you and why it is that you're interested in their companies. I mentioned already that research in the companies is so important. By perusing the different companies on your career fair event page and signing up for their sessions, you'll get a sense as to what their companies are all about by looking at their descriptions, looking at the sessions that they have, and looking at positions that they have posted on Handshake. That'll really give you a sense. You can also do company research on a platform called Vault, which you all have access to in the resources section of your Handshake accounts. At the end of the day, you want to demonstrate enthusiasm and initiative by learning about the company products, services, current events in advance, so that you can speak to some of those things when you're actually scheduling these sessions with them. It'll show that you've done your homework. It'll show that you're really invested in what they have to offer in their company culture and what they stand for. Okay. Moving right along here. Before the career fair. So it's important to be prepared for some of the questions that you might be asked, preparing some of the answers to very commonly asked questions that an employer can ask you. So of course, without me even putting it on the screen, I'm sure everybody knows the most common question, whether it be on an interview or just a regular chat with an employer, will be, tell me about yourself. And this is where your elevator pitch will come in handy, being able to talk about yourself, what you're studying, why it is that you're interested in that particular firm, things that you're interested in, you're passionate about, interests that you have, and talking about how you got to where you are today, briefly maybe talking about a recent work or internship experience and how that led you to where you are now and how that's refueled your passion to work in a certain industry. However it is you want to talk about yourself, as long as it comes across as natural and holistic and not rehearsed. Companies can pick up on that. And at the end of the day, you just want it to be a natural conversation where you're just sharing a little bit about yourself, okay? why it is that you want a position at their company. This is where it will come in handy for you to do specific research about that firm, talking about their company culture, what it is about something that they offer that resonates with you. Do they have a particular program that really stood out to you? Those kind of things is going to be really, really important to be able to focus on. And again, take advantage of the Vault platform, look at the company website, look on LinkedIn to see Baruch alums that are working at that firm, conduct informational interviews with Baruch alums working at companies you're interested in meeting with. All of those steps are going to give you more insight to be more well equipped when you're talking to the recruiters tomorrow. Why should we select you for this position? Is there something that you feel makes you stand out and makes you unique for a particular role? You may have to think about those things. And this is something we can help coach you through. We can kind of unpack some of your work experiences and background and interests and skills to be able to talk about comfortably when you're meeting with recruiters. And then, of course, do you have any questions for me? You want to make sure you have questions prepared, at least 2 or 3 questions. And you'll see on the right side, we have some of those questions for you. So what qualities are you looking for in potential employees? That's a really great question to ask a recruiter, whether it be at the end of an interview or when you're just loosely chatting with them at a career fair. What are some of the tasks and projects I will be involved in? What kind of training or orientation will I receive? Like for a new hire, that's a really great question to ask. Could you describe a typical work week or day on the job? What is the company culture like, and what is the application or interview process? A lot of companies tomorrow will be using their group sessions and or one-on-one sessions to further talk about their application process, when the deadlines are happening, how intense some of their applications could be, the kind of forms that you'll be required to complete. So you want to make sure that you're asking these kinds of questions and you have a good sense as to what to expect. Okay. All right. Video chat etiquette. So we know at this point, we're several years, into, or it's several years ago, I should say, is when we experienced the pandemic, and that prompted a lot of students to be, experiencing virtual classes, and it really changed things up a little bit in terms of people's experience with virtual platforms. And so a lot of students are comfortable on virtual platforms, but may not have ever attended a virtual fair or event, and so it might be a little bit daunting to know how to actually conduct yourself. So it's important to keep your video or your camera on unless you're otherwise instructed. Especially when you're talking to recruiters, you want to make sure that they can see you. It sets a nice tone. It shows a little bit more professionalism. I know that a lot of times when students are sitting in on presentations, they feel it's more respectful to have their camera off, and that's fine. But when you're chatting with recruiters, either through a group session or a one-on-one session, it's ideal to have your camera enabled. And really to encourage as much face-to-face connection as possible. You want to make sure if you're going to be on your laptop or your phone and you're going to be on campus or in a loud space that you remain on mute. Ideally, you want to find yourself a quiet spot so that there's no background noise when you are speaking or asking questions, just to diminish any interruptions, just to make sure there's no barking dogs or honking horns in the background. That's really, really important. Most video platforms have chat functions. So this is a really great way to ask a clarifying question when someone is presenting or speaking. This will be ideal when you're in a group session. If they're encouraging people to type their questions into a chat, it's kind of like our platform right now, where we encourage you to type your questions into the chat. Make sure that you actually take advantage of those chat functionalities. And then, of course, give yourself at least 5 to 10 minutes to troubleshoot technology before the event. Every time we have a virtual fair, there's always going to be students that are having technical glitches or issues. Maybe they're not using the right browser. So you want to make sure you're troubleshooting beforehand to avoid those issues when you don't want to have those issues, right? So I should mention that Internet Explorer is not a browser that you should use when you're on the Handshake platform, because the virtual fair will take place on the Handshake platform. And so if you're using Internet Explorer, it's not going to be as compatible. It's ideal to use Chrome or Firefox to avoid any browser issues. So I just want to mention that. Okay. I see there's another question here. All right. Thank you, Ingrid, for mentioning that. All right. How much firm
There's a question about how many sessions.
How much is too much? Would it be?
It's manageable.
Okay. So it's really up to you, Ellis, as to how many sessions you want to sign up for. Sometimes, and the good thing is that it is a virtual event and it's taking place from 12 to 4. But that doesn't mean you have to attend the entire event. We have students that sometimes will only sign up for sessions for an hour, for 2 hours. Maybe they're working, maybe they're able to sign in on their lunch break when they're interning somewhere. And so you can create your schedule according to time blocks that work for you. So if you're only available from 12 to 1 or 12 to 2 or 2 to 4, you want to make sure you're only signing up for sessions in advance within that time frame, and building your own schedule out. We've had students that you can meet with up to 6 different individual companies over 1 hour, because each one-on-one session is 10 minutes. And so if you sign up for 6 sessions over an hour, you'll get to meet with 6 different employers for 6 one-on-one sessions. So that could be really, really fruitful. You can do that for the entire 4 hours if you want. You can sign up for one-on-one sessions and then group sessions when you're not having your one-on-one sessions. You can kind of be creative in terms of how you want to set up your schedule. But there's really no such thing as signing up for too many sessions. It really just depends on what you're capable of, what you want to do, how active you want to be during the fair. And I'm seeing some other questions here. Thank you, Ingrid. Okay. Moving right along. All right, before the cruise, you want
You're going to share the video with everyone at the end, correct?
Yes, I'm going to send it to everybody that registered for the fair, as well as everybody that attended this workshop right now. Yep. All right, so you want to make a good first impression. Even though it is a virtual fair, it is still important to dress professionally. It'll put you into the proper mindset of being professional, of speaking with recruiters. So it's ideal that you're conducting yourself and you're giving off a very good first impression with how you're presenting yourself on your screen. It really is up to you how you want to dress from the waist down. I would still suggest wearing a full suit, because again, it's going to psychologically put you into that mindset of being at a real fair in person. The only difference is it's going to be virtual. So we would still suggest that you dress as conservatively as possible. More business attire is appropriate. You can see some of the steps, some of the suggestions on the screen to look like a professional. Obviously, the perfume cologne thing really won't make a difference, unless that was for an in-person event. But you want to just make sure you're presenting yourself in a clean, professional, professional way, so that it sets off a good tone. Because again, this is going to be your first impression with these employers. And so you want to make sure you're kind of putting your best foot forward. Okay. All right, so we've now arrived. Let's work the career fair. All right, so during the fair, attitude is really everything. And we understand a lot of students get nervous and anxious. They feel like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. They put a lot of pressure on themselves. But again, at the end of the day, recruiters are people just like you and me. They just want to get to know you. Generally, they love their positions. They love talking with students. They want to get to know why it is you're interested in their firms and their opportunities. They love answering questions. They're very personable. You want to make sure that you're radiating a positive attitude. That will really, really come across very strongly. And again, they understand that you might be a little bit nervous. But the more that you talk to the recruiters, you'll see they're people just like you and me. So try and radiate that positive vibe. Make a really good first impression. Introduce yourself. Obviously, if it's in person, you want to have a firm handshake. Maintain good eye contact when you're talking with them through your screen. And body language is very important. You want to sit up straight. You want to make proper eye contact as you're talking to them. When you're thinking about certain statements to say, of course, you can glance away, but for the most part, you want to make proper eye contact when you're actually talking with them. All right, during the fair. So be honest, be yourself. Use name repetition. So, ask them for what their names are. Obviously, it's probably going to be on the screen. So address them by their name. Of course, you want to be courteous, friendly, project confidence. Really, really important. Listen to things that they're telling you about application deadlines, about their firm. You can even ask questions, follow-up questions about things that they might have shared with you. That'll show that you were invested, that you were truly listening. And then, of course, ask for a business card. In this case, they'll probably share with you their email address through the chat because it's a virtual event. Be able to discuss your strengths, but don't push them on the recruiter. You want to make sure that you're being subtle about that. If they say, what makes you stand out, what makes you unique, tell us, some things about yourself that you really feel good about or confident about, and maybe provide 1 or 2, maybe 3 strengths about yourself that you feel you possess. And it's always nice to provide a little bit of a backstory as to why you feel you have those strengths. Tell them about a time where you exhibited a certain strength at a recent internship or a job or even in a class project. Storytelling, I'm a big fan of storytelling rather than just generically telling them that you have a certain strength. backing it up with a real story or an example, they'll really appreciate that and that will resonate. Be conversational, try to develop a relationship with them. At the end of the day, again, they're just people. Being respectful of their time, letting them talk, don't talk over them when they're trying to communicate certain things to you, and acknowledging that you're in these one-on-one sessions with them, which again are 10 minutes long. So just getting the information you need, being polite, introducing yourself, getting to know a little bit about them, about the company culture, and then thanking them for their time. Collecting any company literature. So this is more probably common in an in-person event where they have brochures and flyers, but they might share flyer links with you through the chat, to an application, to their company website, to a particular brochure. So you want to make sure you're getting any information about them that you can. And then, of course, always ending with a thank you, thanking them for their time. They're probably going to be really busy tomorrow, meeting with student after student after student. So acknowledging that, and they might be a little bit drained. So just thanking them for their time, that really goes a long way. All right. Things not to do. Selling yourself short. You are unique and you have your own story. Please remember that. A lot of students lack confidence. A lot of students sometimes have the imposter syndrome, and you sell yourself short. Please do not do this. Know that every student comes with a different backstory, with different levels of experience. You want to remain confident and positive as you're going into an environment like this, especially when it comes to time to sell yourself to a potential recruiter, okay? We understand that a lot of these things can come with time and experience. Again, we can coach you at the Star Career Development Center on telling your story, because every time you tell your story, it's going to be a little bit different. It's never going to be exactly the same. You're always going to talk about some more things other times than others. You might leave out certain things when you're talking to certain recruiters and then talk about more things with the next recruiter. So every time it's going to be a little bit different, but just make sure it doesn't sound rehearsed. Make sure it sounds natural and authentic. Really, really important. Don't ask about benefits. Don't ask about pay or hours. You want to make sure that you acknowledge that these kinds of things are addressed once you're being actually considered for the role. You don't want to ask, like, if they say, do you have any questions for me? You're not going to ask like what it pays. You're not going to ask about HR oriented things. All of those things will come down the line. Okay. Don't dominate the recruiter's time or space. So we talked about this a little on the last slide, being mindful of their time, that the fact that this is going to be a 10-minute one-on-one session. But even if you're asking questions during a group session, acknowledge that there's probably going to be other students there waiting to ask questions as well. So being very mindful of those things is really important. Pretending to be something that you're not. So boasting about certain things, coming off in a way that maybe is not authentic. It's really not going to resonate very well with an employer. Usually they'll be able to pick up on that kind of vibe. So just be authentic, be true to yourself. And don't leave without inquiring about next steps. Ask about their application process and what kind of next steps that exist. That's really important. Again, thanking them for their time and reminding them of your interest in the company, in their culture, in their opportunities. Really, really important things. Okay. So post-event follow-up. The virtual event is now over. So now what? Set up a time to connect with the recruiter or company employee. Hopefully you will have received their email address, especially if it's someone you chatted with that you feel really resonated with you, where you feel like you had a really strong conversation. It's someone you'd want to stay in touch with. Those are the people you definitely want to get their email addresses and stay in touch with them. This will help the company remember you and get to know you in a more casual and personal environment afterwards. And these are people that are going to become your professional connections and networks moving forward. Okay. And when you follow back up with them, you always want to send a thank you letter acknowledging their time, reference that you met them at the career fair, because that's going to make it much more specific. Acknowledge that you really appreciated their time. You really appreciated the idea of, or the opportunity to learn so much more about the firm, about their opportunities and their culture. So you want to acknowledge those kinds of things. Connect with them on LinkedIn afterwards if you feel like you made a strong connection. And then, of course, the follow-up, it will definitely give you the opportunity to ask questions, especially questions that you may have forgotten to ask them when you first met with them. Because we understand sometimes the sessions can feel very quick, and you may have several questions that you still are curious about that you can now follow up with and ask them in a little bit of a less intimidating environment. You can ask questions that were not asked during the live event. Okay, so I'm going to do a brief demo at this point. All right, so going back to Handshake, when you're logged into Handshake, you'll have these options on the top left. So you're going to click the Events tab. On the next screen, you'll click the option that says career fairs at your school. And then you'll find the event that you all already signed up for. Click on that event, the career fair for tomorrow. You're already registered. So at this point, you'll see 3 tabs: your schedule, available sessions, and career fair details. Click the available sessions tab. And this is where you can actually peruse all of the companies that are registered. You can look at their company descriptions. You can see their available sessions. I mentioned at the beginning that registering for this fair alone will not allow you to speak with anyone. You have to sign up for their sessions to actually make the event worthwhile. Okay, different from an in-person fair where you just register and show up and talk to the companies. A virtual fair, you need to sign up for either a one-on-one session with these companies, which are 10 minutes in length, or a group session, which are 30 minutes in length. And again, group sessions can be used by companies for mini info sessions, for loose Q&A periods. Sometimes they have panels of alums that are answering questions. They all take advantage of the group sessions in a different way. I also want to mention that as long as and this came as a surprise to us when we found out about this, as long as a one-on-one session remains available, students will literally be able to sign up for those sessions as late as 1 minute before. So that means you can sign up at 12:59 p.m. for a 1 o'clock p.m. time slot. Do we suggest that you do that? No. We want you to be proactive. We want you to sign up for sessions in advance. Also, it's been an issue where sometimes students will sign up very late and the company is not refreshing their browser or the site. So they don't see that a student has just signed up and they'll miss the appointment. So while it's not ideal, it is a reality that Handshake permits. So I just want to let you know, you will still be able to sign up for sessions tomorrow during the fair. Okay.
Mike,
So
William is asking, how do I sign up for the company session?
So as you'll see, I'm scrolling through the companies here and you'll see the different sessions listed. So whichever session you're interested in, here's 12 to 12:30, 12:30 to 1. You'll see they have multiple group sessions. You would click on the one that you want to sign up for. It shows you their job filters, the positions they're hiring for, school years they're open to, and this they're attending the fair tomorrow, whether or not they're open to CPT and OPT regarding US work authorization. If you want to sign up for this group session, you would just click the confirm option. Once you do that, it would then appear under the your schedule tab. Right now, in my student test account, I haven't signed up for any sessions. But if I did, you would see them listed here. So it's essentially you're creating your schedule for the fair. Okay. And the same goes for one-on-one sessions. You'll see them listed. So here's one-on-one. There's 6 open sessions with Van Eck, and then they have a group session from 12:30 to 1. To reiterate, the one-on-one sessions are 10 minutes in length. This happens to be from 2:40 to 2:50. But then you'll see these are the other sessions that they have available. So if you can only make the 2:10 to 2:20, you would click that option instead, and then you would click confirm. Okay, so that's essentially how this process works. It's almost like 4 hours of office hours that you're scheduling yourself into these different sessions, and again, creating your own schedule for throughout the day. The system will also tell you, like, let's say you already have a whole schedule built with just a couple of open times. You'll be able to then see companies and their availabilities, but it'll show you when you have conflicts, and it won't permit you to sign up for sessions if it conflicts with something you've already scheduled. Does that make sense? So this is a really important takeaway to understand how this process works. And I'm seeing some other questions coming in here.
Thank you.
Sure thing. And if I've missed anything, let me know. How should we inform the employers about ourselves? And okay, so that's a great question, Ellis, about the group sessions. So feel free, like if you're in a group session and you really enjoyed what the recruiter was sharing, feel free to ask them if they're open to providing an email address. And then that's how you can follow up with them directly. And they would typically provide it in the chat feature within the group session. Sometimes they'll automatically just provide that information for students to see. Sometimes they'll have their screen shared with the name of the company and their email address on the screen because they want students to follow up with them. So it'll really be a little bit different, but don't worry about asking them for an email address if you want to follow up with more questions. There's nothing wrong with that. They'll be expecting that. And that's not rude to ask them that. Okay. I also want to mention earlier, as I mentioned earlier, making your resume public, because when you sign up for a group session or a one-on-one session, companies can actually download the resumes of all of the students that have signed up for their one-on-one sessions, which means by the time that they get to meet with you, they will have already looked at your resume, or they'll have it up in front of them while they're meeting with you. So that's why it's really important to have your resume public for the one that you use to apply, or I'm sorry, for the one that you have in the My Documents section of your Handshake account. So again, this is where you go to My Documents, and when you upload your resume, you would click on the public option here. And it says these are displayed on your profile where employers can download them. If kept private, documents will be stored here for use when applying to jobs and interviews. But again, we would suggest that you make it public so employers can see them in advance, specifically for the career fair. Other questions at all? Any questions at all?
No, I like that Human mentioned that he checks every couple of days because sometimes employers will add sessions, and that is correct.
Right.
So checked often.
Okay, what can we expect when attending a group session? So Kamya, thank you for asking that. So group sessions are going to be different depending on the company. Some of them will just use it as a loose Q&A, allowing students to come and go and just ask questions as they please. Others will use it as formal information sessions where they actually have a presentation and they share their screen and they have a PowerPoint. And they're going through a series of slides and they're talking about their company and things like that. Others will have Baruch alums that are speaking on a virtual panel where there's somebody moderating for students to listen in on. So it really just depends on how the company is handling those group sessions. All of them do it a little bit differently. And yes, thank you, Ingrid. Yes, we definitely have an upcoming employer expos, which are essentially smaller career fairs. And we have those throughout the rest of the fall semester. We have a total of 4 of them. 2 of the 4 will be in person, another 2 will be virtual. You'll find those in the same section as the career fair. So when you click events, click career fairs at your school, you'll see here are the employer expos listed. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 of them. And you'll see which are in person and which are virtual. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, I'm open to any questions. I'm going to share my screen one more time because I have a link that I want to share with all of you. So feel free to visit this particular QR code for more information in general on how to navigate a virtual career fair. We have this information on our website, universal information in terms of navigating virtual career fairs. What I'm also going to do when I share the copy of this recording is I'm going to share some really helpful links from Handshake about navigating virtual fairs, specifically on the Handshake platform. A lot of things will be that are mentioned in that article are things that I've also talked about in today's workshop. I welcome any questions at this point. Given that this is officially the end of the workshop, I'm open to any questions that you have. You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask it aloud, or you can ask it in the chat. Questions about your resume, about how to conduct yourself tomorrow, about how to sign up for a session, about the kind of technology you should be using, browser, any questions that you have about the virtual career fair process, we are open to answering at this point. I think everybody's just processing. We understand this is a lot of information to take in, especially
Mike, this was great. This was a lot of great information.
Thanks.
I mean, everybody knows where to go tomorrow to activate the fair.
I just wanted to ask a quick question.
Yeah. Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, I joined in late and I see that it's recorded. If I want to go back and watch whatever I missed, where do I go? Where do I find the recording?
So thank you for asking. So we're actually going to be sending a copy of this recording to every student that attended, as well as to all students that registered for the fair. And we'll also look into actually posting a copy of this recording in the resources section of our Handshake portal.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Ellis, I see you asked what specifics about the company should we research about? Wonderful question. I love that question. Okay, so you want to look at their company website. You want to look at the kind of positions that they have posted, the tone of their company. You want to look at any challenges they've experienced over the last few years, how they've conducted or how they've handled themselves during those challenges, just by Googling the company and seeing how they're being represented and the kind of things that you're finding on the internet about those firms. and even tapping into Baruch alums on LinkedIn that work at those companies and asking them for general insight about what they feel about what it's like working at those companies and a day in the life and the kind of support they receive and the kind of supervision they get and what it was like for them to be onboarded working at those companies. All of those things are so important for a student to be aware of, especially if they're considering those firms as a place of potential employment.
And I share the link to our interview guide. So that has a lot of great information in there, including professional attire. So make sure you look through that. And for those who join late, I'll share the link again.
Yep. Another thing that I want to mention about company research is looking to see how long the company's been around for, how large the organization is. Are they only located in the United States? How many locations do they have? Are they global? The number of people that are working worldwide for the company, their level of growth, how they're represented in the stock market, like all of those kinds of things you can certainly reference and you can look into for yourself. And again, Vault is a wonderful way to learn just to do general company research, as well as doing a Google search, looking at the company website, and talking to Baruch alums at those firms. Ellen, I see your hands up.
Thank you. Ellen Stein here, Director of STAR. And first of all, I want to say thanks to Mike and Ingrid, not only for this great, really informative workshop, but for all they and the employer relations team is doing to bring you the companies that are coming tomorrow. My tip for folks, I know that there were questions about what specific research. One thing that I want to point out would be a great question to ask if you're meeting with somebody one-on-one or even in a group is, when is that company going to be on campus next? Or when are they going to have another program coming next? And you might have already covered that, and forgive me if you did, I'm just seconding it. But we can't underscore enough how important it is to follow up with the companies and to participate by going to the different activities that they're doing on campus, because they really pay attention to that and track how many engagements students have had.
Tell them about the employer expos, Ellen, that it's important that they attend those. Because those are like they're groups. We're doing something different. These are groupings as opposed to doing one-on-one information sessions. The companies are being grouped. So Michael shared earlier, we have 4 because students were asking, what are we doing in person? And they're like mini fairs. So you'll have an opportunity to meet with them. It could be virtual. So we have a little bit of everything for everyone, and some are in person. So I would say, register for those. And if you meet some of these companies at the fair, take a look right now. Some of them, I think we made that information available to the students, which companies are going to be in attendance. I don't know if we have, Mike. But let them know, hey, I see that you're also attending the expo. I plan to attend that as well. Also, companies post, keep checking handshake. Michael showed you under events. Some companies, there's been a lot more of that activity, are hosting their own sessions, and they're inviting students from their different partner schools. So I would say to you, pay attention to those as well. And we always partner with the employer, so this way they add our logo, and you'll find that there's other logos from other schools, but try to take advantage of that, because sometimes I think students overlook the external links to those companies that are hosting sessions. So again, there's opportunities for everyone. They're during the day, they're in the evening. I think maybe even some have on weekends, not that many, but just as an FYI. So keep checking right on a regular basis, just like you check to make sure and see if there's any availability for interviews. They go fast. So if you wait to the last minute, as Mike mentioned, you want to do it sooner than later, signing up for those group sessions and information sessions, because there is a cap. It used to be 50, so we're so super excited that now it has increased to 100 for the group sessions. But, there is a cap, so just keep that in mind. And for some of these companies, we usually get like upwards of 200 students that are interested in participating for the group sessions. So be mindful of that.
I also want to piggyback on, thank you both, Ellen and Ingrid. I really appreciate your insight and chiming in there. I also want to mention that if you're interested in a particular company and you see they're at the fair or they're not at the fair, you can always go to the events section of Handshake and just type in the name of the company, because a lot of them will do their own events virtually that they happen to post on our site for students to register for. So you definitely want to do that as well. just to kind of expand and make sure you're tapping it and exhausting all options.
Yeah, that's the one I was referring to. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
sure.
where you would go for that.
And you'll see on your screen, I brought up the Employer Expo, which is going to be the first of 4 expos, which is going to be in person on Tuesday, October 7th. So
Yes.
this is different from the virtual fair in that you don't have to sign up for sessions in advance. Because it's in person, you just show up and you would go to the individual tables and the companies that you want to speak with. And if you want to see the companies that are coming, you just click the Employers tab. You see a little description about the company, and you can peruse through all the different firms that will be representing on this day. And we also have all of the other employer expos listed currently on Handshake. So again, it's under the career fairs at your school section once you click events. And this is where you'll see all of the expos listed, the number of students that are already signed up for each, the companies, the number of companies that are registered for each, and you can peruse all of that information in advance. Okay.
So what is this Employer Expo about?
So the employer expos are just another opportunity for students to meet with employers that they're interested in. These could be companies that will not be represented at the virtual fair. These will be companies that some of them prefer to come in person instead. And so that's why we're having 2 of the 4 expos in person. So it's going to be another networking opportunity for students to meet with recruiters.
Oh, thank you.
And you're welcome. And there's 4 of them. So you'll see them all under the events and then job fairs at your school or career fairs at your school section. Great question, Human. There will not be another prep for the expos, but that's why we're recording today's workshop, because the kind of prep that we provided in today's workshop will be very similar to how you represent yourself at an employer expo. Okay, good question, Aurora. Just gonna mute you there. Okay. Any tips on how to appropriately approach employers in an in-person setting after an expo with many students on site? So let me just make sure I understand your question. So Aurora, you're curious as to how to approach employers at the expo, at an in-person expo? I believe that's what your question means. So in those cases, yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So in those cases, it's important to be mindful, and there could be long lines. That's usually the downfall with an in-person event. There could be 3 students waiting, but there could be 30 students waiting. So you never really know. So being mindful of the number of students that are waiting after you, not to monopolize the employer's time, to just spend a couple of minutes with them, shake their hand, make proper eye contact, ask them some questions, the same way that you would if it were virtual. But of course, when you're in person, you're standing right in front of them. So you want to make sure your body language, you're standing up straight, your body language is coming across as very strongly, your eye contact is all there, you're shaking their hand when you first meet with them, and when you say, thank you for your time, collect a business card physically from them so that you can follow back up with them. And just basically ask them questions about their firm, be prepared to talk a little bit about yourself in the same way that you would at a virtual fair. Also, with the in-person ones, it's different because the virtual ones kind of force you to research who you want to speak with, because you're forced to sign up for sessions with them in advance. Whereas the in-person sessions, you don't need to do that. You're just going to show up. So have a sense as to the companies you want to actually speak with, and do a little bit of strategizing before you go, so you could be proactive and which companies you actually want to speak with. That's another tip that we suggest when it comes to any in-person events.
And I put in some common sense things about not having any scents that precede you or linger after you in an in-person event. And also, I encourage people to think about going to some of the least crowded lines, because they have more time to talk to you, and they might really engage with you. Some companies that you might not have initially thought of might be actually a good fit for you. So
I love those tips. Thank you for sharing those, Ellen. Yeah, I totally agree. I love the not chewing gum and not smoking right before. I think that's so important. That could be very much of a turnoff to a recruiter. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, there's a lot of these nuances for students to be aware of.
Yes, and it doesn't hurt to bring copies of your resume, guys. They might not. Don't be offended if they say we rather not, because some companies, it's their policy not to collect any documentation. They might direct you to their site. But just have it with you. It doesn't hurt, and let them know, hey, I have a copy. Do you mind? Can I give you a copy? But then make sure you get their information, their contact information, so you can follow up with them, right? And then we gave you some tips and pointers on how to do that. So this way you can stand out, let them know we met at the expo. When we talked about anything in particular that you discussed, just to remind the employer, and know that they get hundreds and hundreds of emails, so they might not respond, but it's okay. At least you did follow through and you send them a thank you note. So, and they usually keep that in mind. They remember these little things.
I would piggyback off of that. Thank you for mentioning that, Ingrid. Yes, definitely have printed resumes available at the in-person expos. Should you be asked to provide a copy to one of the employers, don't just push it on them. Let them ask you if they're collecting resumes, and then you'll be ready to provide it to them, but don't just give it to them if you're not prompted to. I see somebody
And Nate,
asked,
I like bringing a pad with me. I'm also a note taker. I like jotting things down, and I see Ellen responded. But yes, bring a pad, a small little pad with you. Don't write in front of them, and maybe step to the side and take notes so that you remember, because you're going to meet a lot of people and you will forget.
Yeah, and I think a big difference. Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, that's okay. Go right ahead.
In person and the the virtual. With the virtual, the time span is very defined. The in person, it's not. And so they can notice your behavior while you're waiting in line. Are you getting anxious and cranky and annoyed, or are you being patient? And also, while you're talking to them, you don't want to have the 20-minute conversation when there's a long line behind you. So be conscientious and courteous that there is a long line and you just finished waiting on it. So that your sort of your ability to read the room is also very important.
And the same goes for the virtual group sessions. If the companies are just permitting students to loosely ask questions, and there's not really a formalized way, like they don't have a presentation, they're just answering questions as they come, be mindful if there's a lot of other students in that group session, which you'll be able to see, be mindful of that there could be a lot of other students with other questions, and so being respectful of that. So the same goes for a virtual group session as well. I see somebody else asked what kind of info you would provide in a follow-up email. Like what would you actually say in a message like that? And that's a really great question. I think a lot of other students are probably wondering the same thing. So you want to email them. Obviously, this is why it's important to collect their business card or to get their email address, follow back up with them, thank them for their time, maybe referencing one or two things that you learned from them, from your chat, which will show that you're really invested, you were really listening, it was a very fruitful conversation for you. Mention how it's refueled your passion to work at that organization, or how this organization, is really of interest to you and how it resonates with your career goals, how it's really in line with the kind of thing that you'd like to do professionally, and ask if you can remain in touch with them should you have questions down the line. This is the start or the building of a professional connection. So those are really the kind of little tidbits that you'd want to address in a follow-up email. I hope that answers your question, Ellis. Okay. I'm looking through the chat here to see if maybe we missed any questions. If we did at this point, please feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask any questions aloud. And we're happy to answer them for you right here on the spot. And Nate, I love that you asked about the notepads. As Ingrid said, yes, that's a beautiful thing. A lot of people, like, you hear it, but then it goes right out of your head. So if you need to jot things down, there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, I think that employers will appreciate that, because it'll show that you're really trying to process the information they're sharing with you and that you want to remember that. If you want to go the extra mile, you could always just say, I hope you don't mind, I'm just jotting some of these things down. But they're really not going to mind that. It's a nice touch.
No, that's my middle name, Notepad.
You are, yes, absolutely.
So many of those little ones. The little ones are the best.
Any other questions at all about how to prepare yourself for tomorrow, how to sign up for the sessions on Handshake, your resume, any questions about your resume and making it public?
Going once, going twice.
I think we were just so detailed in this workshop.
I know. Well, that's just great. And then you'll get the recording, guys, and make sure you go to our website. Just go to the Baruch College website and, and search for STAR and it'll take you directly there. So a lot of the information that I shared earlier from the interview guide, the resume guide, the professional attire guide. I mean, there's stuff in there about picking a career, finding a job. So if you haven't already done so, please, we encourage you to go, visit our website and click under the student tab. There's also a section on avoiding job scams, since we have an extra minute or two. So please, 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 because this is the season, everybody's looking for work, and there's a lot of scam artists out there that are, targeting students with opportunities that are fraudulent. So we do have information on our website on avoiding job scams. So I would encourage you to look through that.
Agreed. Yes, I just pasted a link to our website homepage.
Perfect.
What Ingrid just mentioned, to find the info on scams and other related things to fairs, you want to hover over the students tab, and that's where you'll see all relevant topics.
Yes.
I am going to stop the recording at this point.
All right. I think everyone here will get a job or two.